Joining us now, fresh off his own run for the Congress of the United States in Nevada, the executive director of the TeaParty.net, Niger Innis. Niger, we thank you for taking time to join us by phone today.
My pleasure, JD. Always good to be on with you.
Well, you and I share the distinction of having been on the ballot, and I can just tell you I finished second on a couple of occasions. So we've gone through that. But what about Chris McDaniel? Is he going to abide by this ruling in Mississippi, given the thin margin?
Well, I had a very similar exercise, and just for the record, I finished a second too, JD. So I've had my first experience in running for office, and to be quite frank and blunt with you, there were some, let's say, irregularities in my race as well, and I had to think long and hard and consult my staff and consult my team and supporters, all of whom wanted me to challenge these really crazy results in my congressional run. And at some point, I realized, and I still think there are some huge question marks in my particular race, but at some point it becomes diminishing returns when you challenge it. And it is also, as you know, JD, it's a very expensive exercise, So at the end of the day, it's a very heavy choice that one has to make, and at the end of the day, it is Chris McDaniel's decision at the end of the day as to what's best for himself, for his family, for his supporters, and quite frankly, for the future of Mississippi and the future of the Mississippi Republican Party.
Well, You mentioned those irregularities, but you say it's up to him. We've seen a lot of groups nationally saying, get money into this. He has to contest this. But part of this race, and politics, I guess this quote comes from Boston, politics ain't beanbag, Dooley. This thing got to be really, really a nasty race. There were reports out there linking Mr. McDaniel to the Ku Klux Klan. When you heard that type of stuff, what did you make of it?
Well, it was even more. Yes, that was done against McDaniel, and very specifically, it was being asserted that McDaniel and the Tea Party element within Mississippi was racist, and these robocalls were being targeted to black Democrats to get them to come out to vote. Because as you know, JD, in Mississippi's law, you can vote. Democrats can legally vote in a Republican primary. Obviously, a law that Mississippi Republicans need to change. But nevertheless, it was the law, and the Cochrane forces that were desperate to get any and every vote that they could employed reprehensible tactics. And, I'm glad you bring that up, because there's a distinction between saying that it is possible that Cochrane legally won the election, although I think that's very much in question as well. And that obviously the gentleman from Missouri, Republican Party, still believes that that's in question. A lot of Americans across the country believe that's in question. But there's a distinction between legal win and what is ethical and what is decent and appropriate for our political discourse. And it is highly reprehensible for Republicans to actually employ one of the worst racial demagogic tactics. I call it a weapon of mass destruction and distraction, which is to throw the race card.
Well, it certainly has been a big part of this, and as it continues, and as it's still disputed here, there's plenty of ammo out there for the press. And Niger, I want to get your reaction to something that Stuart Stevens from the Daily Beast wrote about Chris McDaniel. Quote, I appreciate that an early death can do wonders for a rock star's reputation. There's little reason that losing a race should elevate an inexperienced state senator to some cult status. Conservative Republicans stand for personal responsibility. They usually find whining to be an unattractive quality best left to toddlers and MSNBC hosts. Niger, can you respond to that?
Yeah, I wonder what he said about Al Gore after the 2000 election.
I don't know how old he is if he was working at that point, but that's an excellent point. But the longer this goes on, you mentioned diminishing returns, and I know you said it was up to McDaniels to decide when he should pull out of this, but are we getting close to that point in your opinion? of diminishing returns?
No, I know you're going to think that I'm walking the tightrope here, but I really principally believe that, and JD I think would agree with me, it is up to each and every single candidate. I can tell you, as the executive director of the TeaParty.net and representing this organization and representing what I believe would be the majority opinion of the Tea Party movement, I think Chris McDaniel should fight this thing until the last dog is dead, okay? But personally, as an individual that just left a race that had similar shenanigans, if you will, but made a decision to bow out, I would say that it is a deeply personal decision that McDaniel has to make, and he should weigh, obviously, the feelings of the Tea Party movement nationally within his state. He should weigh the interests of the future of the Republican Party of Mississippi. He should weigh the vicious and unethical, even if it was legal, the vicious and unethical attacks against him. He should weigh all those factors. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to say that McDaniel, I'm not going to be like this gentleman you quoted who would refer to him as a child for pursuing his First Amendment rights and deciding to pursue the thing out. And I'm not going to say that he should do the reverse as well. It's his choice.
Well, just to fill you both in, John, you made reference, and Niger, you're commenting. Stuart Stevens, just to give you a brief sketch, Stuart Stevens is one of the consultants working closely with John McCain, and then, if I'm not mistaken, in the last presidential election with Mitt Romney. Stuart Stevens came under some criticism for the passive way in which Mitt Romney engaged with Barack Obama in that third debate over foreign policy.
Right, yeah.
But it is interesting, Niger, and I don't really understand the methodology of Stuart Stevens taking to the Daily Beast to rub salt in the wounds, to pour gasoline on the fire. That is a tough thing. There is some money out there. The Senate Conservatives Fund, $70,000 for a McDaniel challenge. As you say, Niger, while he has to go through an introspection on this, does Chris McDaniel, that's real money. And there are a lot of other organizations raising money right now trying to mount a challenge to the Cochran victory.
And that is very much a part of the decision that McDaniel has to make. And again, I think the question that he is asking, and I'm sure his attorneys are asking, is even if he has the appropriate amount of resources to pursue this thing, does he have the ability to reach that very high threshold to prove that there was illegality or voter fraud of some sort? And it is, and JD, you know this, it is extremely high bar, even if you know in your bones that there was something irregular and let's call it a gremlin in the system. It is very hard to show and to reveal to the public that it is. But unlike a lot of other candidates out there, and let me be quite blunt, including myself, that really were economically challenged in terms of pursuing, a recount and pursuing the types of things that needed to be done to challenge the results of the election. McDaniel obviously is going to be in a strong posture if he thinks he can win the case and reach that high threshold to keep this thing going. Now, let me say this. I will weigh in here. If McDaniel, this is my opinion as an individual, obviously I'm the executive director of the TeaParty.net, but this is my opinion as fresh off the campaign. If McDaniel has enough resources to buoy his name and his name ID alone, but he also realizes he does not have a realistic chance of reaching that high threshold of proof and evidence that there was voter fraud, I don't think he should pursue it. Because then you're going to have the Stuart Stevens of the world and others who obviously were part of the establishment rally around the Flag Boys come out and say this guy knows he can't prove this fraud, but yet he's going out there to selfishly pursue his own agenda.
Niger, only about.
Case,
okay, go ahead. Finish the thought. Go ahead, sir.
No. I think in that case he should pull the plug. But if he thinks he can meet that threshold and he's got the resources to prove it, go for it.
All right. Now, there's somebody else going for it, rhetorically speaking. Sarah Palin out there in the media saying that it is time to impeach President Obama, specifically with what's going on the border. Niger, a minute left. Did the former vice presidential nominee of the Republican Party go too far in calling for the impeachment of Obama?
No, she's exercising her right of First Amendment rights, and God bless her. I'm not necessarily saying that I join her in that demand that he be impeached, but God bless her for exercising her First Amendment rights.
So you may not agree, but she's free to say that. That's the takeaway from Niger Innis.
And also, if it was Bush in office or an R next to this guy's name, he would have already been impeached 3 times over.
All right, Niger Innis, Executive Director of the TeaParty.net. We thank you for your insights, and we look forward to our next visit. So you hear from Niger right there on the perils of finishing second and the notion of a recount. What about the Mississippi race? We'd love to have your comments. Why don't you tweet us your remarks at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum.